This is a Tracking the Tropics update with a certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We have the new 2 p.m. advisory from Tropical Storm Imelda. I'm meteorologist Lee Southwick, joined by Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner. And Lou, not a lot has changed with this new advisory on Imelda.
Yeah, and we want to start seeing, and we will later tonight, and kind of those overnight updates, 11 p.m. and then again 2 a.m. We want to start seeing that in north direction turn to in E, like a north-northeast,
Yes.
and then a northeast, and then an east. We want to start seeing that. That'll be the changes that really matter to us. Strength, don't anticipate like rapid intensification over the next couple of updates. We do see it perhaps becoming a hurricane over the next day or two, and then by the time it's to Bermuda, we've seen some forecasts, as we can see on our map there, taking it to a Category 2 hurricane. So there is some strengthening coming, but for our intents and purposes, we want to see the change as you look at the kind of headline of this, Lee, the Tropical Storm Imelda. We've got winds, pressure, and the MOV movement. That N needs to become an NE, and I'll be comfortable when that happens. I
agree, and I think it's going to happen soon. You can see the National Hurricane Center. They think it's going to happen soon, too, that turn. So in the next 12 hours, it looks like it'll be moving more to the northeast and continuing to strengthen. So right now, it still has winds of 60 miles an hour, still a tropical storm, but they do expect it to be a Category 1 hurricane as it's moving to the east on Tuesday, which is about 300 miles. In fact, Lou, I'm going to draw a...
It's time to draw.
Right there.
Do a little art. Yeah.
Little art. So around 300 miles away from the coast, away from the Jacksonville Beach area. So with that said, far away from us, it is going to continue. It is expected to turn. We expect it to turn. It will move to the east and away from us. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to feel any impacts here. And we already have been experiencing rain this morning, these far-reaching outer bands from Imelda actually reaching us. But before we do that, Lou, the other kind of object here on the screen stealing the attention is Humberto. Look at that massive hurricane. New update from the 2 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center has Humberto still as a Category 4.
Yeah, it's tough to ignore that even on the Imelda map, that impressive looking hurricane. Now, not in brute size necessarily, kind of its wingspan, so to speak, but in pressure and strength. Now, a little bit earlier, we had seen 940. It's kind of bouncing up just a bit, kind of going back and forth in those low 940s. But as it moves to the north, kind of that weakening, similar. I mean, in fact, Imelda may actually get to a point where it's the stronger of the storms in its approach to Bermuda. But, an interesting setup and scenario with these storms so close to each other. If either, if Imelda, for instance, existed on its own, we'd be talking about a pretty different forecast. And it's interesting, another interesting note, you drew the mileage and some 300 miles or more at its closest approach. And this time, last week when we were looking at modeling Wednesday, Thursday, there were some models that had this as close as 60 miles off our coast before hitting Charleston. So when we ask you to continue to check in on tropical updates, it's changes like that happen. Confidence gets much, much higher in that 5-day and then closer in time frame. So we watch that. Your tropical update, and at the moment, at least, you have these 2 storms, of course. Hurricane Center not really keyed in on much else at the moment, but I think we turn our attention to the Caribbean and the Gulf as we get into October. Tropical watches and warnings. Want to emphasize the tropical storm warnings that you would see primarily for offshore waters, right, Lee?
Right. So this is off our coast. Of course, also Nassau, the Bahamas, overall, the Bahamas under that tropical storm warning. You'll also notice that Bermuda is under a tropical storm watch. That is from Humberto. Humberto, as you saw earlier with the cone, which I'll pull up again real quick, not expected to make landfall, but it's such a big, powerful storm, it could perhaps impact Bermuda. But then again, behind it, we would be watching Imelda to come in and potentially impact Bermuda, unfortunately. Now with the forecast calling for a Category 2 hurricane when Imelda approaches Bermuda. So there right now, the Tropical Storm Watch from the from the hurricane, and then we'll have to again watch it beyond that for any potential impacts from Imelda. Now, as you saw here locally, we do not have that tropical storm watch off of our coast anymore, thank goodness, because we are confident that it will turn to the east. Even though right now it's moving to the north, it will turn to the east. With that said, look how big of a system Imelda is. We are getting some of those outer bands moving on shore. So here's a look at I-10 where we've seen some rain. You can see the slick roads out there too. Lou, we have had rain moving on shore throughout the morning. We had a messy morning commute for some, and now areas right along our beaches starting to get or under a bit of a break, but more rain could be on the way.
Yep, so we're out towards Baker County now, some showers, Union Bradford County, Alachua, and then Putnam County as well. So that's kind of your main areas of showers at the moment. And yeah, so if you're 95 and east, right now you're getting that break perhaps until the evening. So, those winds are going to just continue to grow. They're going to get stronger through the late afternoon, into the evening, and overnight. And then Tuesday kind of really gets a little more robust. And while we will still have chances for rain and some showers as we go through Tuesday, chances drop a bit as that storm starts that more east and northeast move. You saw Palatka there with some rain. I will say we haven't seen much lightning, and that's expected with this. I saw in Yulee a little earlier the lone little thunderstorm, the one strike of lightning would have been right near Wildlight area. But the overall motion, you see that big swath of moisture just off of southeast Georgia, northeast Florida coast. It'll slowly try to make its way in, but that's hours off.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can actually get a better radar look at that for us. I'll zoom out, and we can kind of see more of the motion of these outer bands. Let's see, let's put this on like a 2-hour loop just to give us a better idea how this is moving off of our coast. You can see it's off there offshore, but occasionally some of that rain does make it onshore. So big cluster of rain. It looks like it is slowly working its way towards us. There we go. That's a bit more of a clear image for everyone. But yeah, slowly those kind of try to wrap in and towards us, and then the motion of the downpours that move over the first coast, generally speaking, moving from northeast down to the southwest. Now, as mentioned, we already had rain earlier this morning, and some areas, small localized areas, had 2 to 4 inches of rain. This is radar estimated rainfall totals, but Lou, I thought we could look through the area and also just kind of check out some of these areas that have, according to the radar, estimating some higher rainfall totals, and I really noticed it across portions of St. Johns County where we had 2+ inches of rain estimated.
Yeah, and that was from last night, because I live in that area which would have been shaded in blue, very close to that 2.1 inch mark. And I mean, from the time I kind of was locking up the house and settling in for the evening, overnight, it just pretty steady rain there at the house. And that was the story for the northwest kind of part of St. Johns County. So plenty of rain there, but again, it's because of the way the bands line up. I mean, you're a little bit further north, and if you don't get that banding and the training behind it, you may not have that impressive rainfall total, and that's kind of a good piece of news with this storm. It was never we were never really forecasting it to be the biggest rainmaker as far as that 5 to 10 inch sort of forecast, right? It was never going to be that. But this is a little bit better scenario. 0.3 of an inch downtown, out towards Oakleaf, an inch in Ponte Vedra. Again, estimated amounts, and certainly more could be coming here in the next 24 hours.
And that's what concerns me down where you said the area where you live, portions of St. Johns County, Flagler County, where we've had that heavy rain starting yesterday and last night. That's already saturated ground. So while right now a lot of us have a break, if more of these rain bands move on shore later on today, tonight, or tomorrow, we'll have to see if that water starts to collect and pile up. That would be the concern for any sort of localized flood threat that we have here. So we do have a weather impact alert here today and tomorrow, and part of that concern would be the heavy rain, but Lou, it's also the gusts out there and the dangerous seas. But with the heavy rain, that's why you added under the needs section to use that caution while driving when we have these downpours move on shore.
And that'll be the most impactful part, because I don't think anybody's really getting out in the boat or is going to make that decision to go and enjoy a nice swim in the ocean, but everybody's going to have to drive home from work today. And, a lot of families are going to think about, well, is my kid going to practice baseball today or, whatever, get on the fields in the afternoon. And certainly, St. Johns County, while not raining now and actually even through that dinner time, you might not see much more, but it's already had so much that some of the fields may be wet. Looking at Futurecast now as we look through the rest of that evening, not painting a lot of rain on as that big energy kind of trying to stay offshore until you get to Tuesday morning, and then those bands running right parallel with the beach. So I could see get some good beach showers as you're waking up and watching Good Morning Jacksonville. So we'll be watching the commute yet again as we wake up in the morning. Totals, again, not overly impressive. We are in a bit of, especially west of Jacksonville, getting in that drought phase. We need the rain. And I'm kind of holding my breath for anything that's going to be a true drought buster. Lee, right on cue, as you see the moderate drought from Lake City all the way through Baker County, Union, Bradford, and into even parts of Clay and Putnam. So, and then that's going to start creeping further and further east, and we're going to see as those rain chances kind of have been limited. And even now with a tropical system bringing us rain, it's just not that much.
And we don't have the drought conditions along our beaches because of the nor'easters, the setups that we've had here recently. Same story again today and tomorrow, highest rain chances out at the beaches. Well, we need it to move inland. But beaches continue to get most of these impacts with these systems that we've been watching the past couple of months. And out of the beaches too, you already briefly mentioned this, but the rip currents, also the surf height out there. We have reporters, we even have our own meteorologist, Robert Speta, heading out to the beaches too to keep an eye on it. But the waves, the surf height today expected to get up to 5 to 6 feet later on this evening. And then tomorrow, they could be up to around 10 feet. Now, that's not for everyone up and down our coast. And Lou, I don't know if you would like to chime in with where you think we would see some of those those biggest waves. I think it's the farther south you go, the higher the waves they're going to be. But generally speaking, around 10 feet. I did see some data trying to point towards 12-foot waves for some areas, maybe Flagler County.
Yeah, 100% south. So just because of proximity to the center and momentum and inertia, I think you're going to certainly southern St. John's could have some big waves in rough surf towards like Crescent Beach and the Matanzas Inlet there as you get closer to and down towards Marineland. So certainly, and we see it at Marineland too. We see the at high tides the waves kind of pounding up against the rocks there, which could lend itself at times of high tide to some low-level street flooding. And as we go through Tuesday, so we're in our time of high tide now for today, essentially up and down our coast. For tomorrow, backing it up, just about an hour. So while we were talking about between 2 and 3 today, it'll be essentially between 3 and 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. That afternoon high tide cycle we'll want to watch for the potential with some minor coastal flooding. And again, I want to just emphasize, this is nothing worse than some of the king tide coastal flooding we saw with previous nor'easters. So we had some areas with high water. Fernandina got inundated there downtown, up by the marina, and parts of even the St. Johns River and tributaries did as well. So this will be akin to that, maybe not even quite that bad, but we do want to watch those times of high tide very carefully. With that in mind, it is 2:15. We're about halfway through our 2 p.m. stream with your latest information on Imelda and Humberto and the tropics and our impacts. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll wrap this thing up on the other side. Stay there.
All right, next we... Again, I'm meteorologist Lee Southwick, joined by Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner. We're here because we got a 2 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center, checking that out. But Lou, we've already gone through some of our impacts. We talked about the rain, the heavy rain bands, and the possibility of localized flooding. Plus, we talked about surf conditions too. But we should talk about our breeze and our gusts as right now. Not that impressive. But you can see our current wind speeds in the double digits for some of us. Still fairly breezy out there. Yeah,
we're kind of illustrating the best case scenario and playing out with our forecast, because some of the previous earlier in the weekend, later last week forecasts had us, dealing with winds today 30 to 40, and this is so much better, and we'll take it. Granted, it get up towards Brunswick, St. Simons, and out towards Mayport, the beaches where you'd expect. And we just got the update there live in St. Augustine, 10 to 15 at the beach, sustained. That's a breezy day at the beach, certainly, but that's not necessarily going to knock tree limbs down or cause massive power outages. And that's kind of when you get to that magic number of 40 and up, that's sort of when you would anticipate damaging winds. But this is nothing that anybody at the beach can't handle, and looking pretty good. Now, Lee, it showed us our gusts as well. And in fact, other than Lake City, ironically enough, far out west, but they just haven't had any wind until they got that brief 16-mile-an-hour gust. We're not registering really any gusts. All right, so nothing that would be much higher than what is sustained. No outlying wind gusts on the charts. So we'll take that too. And while it could ramp up through the night as we talk about our forecast, Lee.
Yeah, so, I think it will pick up a little bit for our beaches later on this evening.
Yep.
And that's what we got our team out there at the beaches, and they'll be bringing those live reports. Even yesterday, we had Zach Wilcox out at the beaches, just kind of checking out the preps, talking to Ocean Rescue, and he talked about how it was brutal at the beach because the breeze was already blowing yesterday, and the sand was getting in everyone's eyes. People were leaving the beach. I think if you're trying to plan for an evening walk on the beach this evening, also not the best conditions. Now, it's not awful out there, but still, the wind will be blowing, the sand could be blowing around, and of course, too, we'll have to watch out for some of those showers coming on shore as well. But notice as we head into Tuesday, this keeps the wind just a little bit stronger than today. So maybe by a couple miles per hour, both when it comes to our sustained winds and our gusts. But as Lou said, nothing overly impressive. I think if we got a max wind gust, it would be upper 20s, maybe near 30. But as Lou said, not in the 40s. Now, across the southeast coast, we've been keeping a close eye on places like Charleston and Myrtle Beach too. But if you look here, our future winds show you that, they could get some stronger gusts in Charleston, but that's what it's also showing for St. Augustine. So about the same for them. It looks like now where earlier we had those models showing 60-mile-per-hour winds for Charleston. Lou, now they'll be hard-pressed to also find around the 40s as well.
And the reason for this, because you might be scratching your heads like, well, wait a second, that center of low pressure is much, much closer to us in Jacksonville and Daytona than it is to Charleston, South Carolina. Why would they be getting stronger winds? Well, it's not just Imelda that's controlling our weather right now. There's also high pressure to our north. And that squeeze of pressure gradient, so with that Charleston kind of being a little more approximate to that, and this pressure gradient tightening, I think that's why they may see a little bit higher wind gust. Also, the geographical setup of Jacksonville kind of being the most western point of the east coast of the United States, it kind of helps with those potential gusts as well. So that Charleston Peninsula sort of out there and unprotected, that might just explain why they'd be seeing a little bit worse than we will. But certainly there by Tuesday, this model absolutely indicating, even by Tuesday morning, that center of circulation clearly doing that eastward jog.
Which is what we like to see. So again, to revisit, since we talked about this earlier in the stream, but if people have logged on later or turned on First Coast News Plus later, I thought we should just go over again our impacts. Because again, we do think this is going to turn to the east. And we are not going to see a landfall here from the system. But even though it will be taking that turn to the east and away from us while it's around 300 miles off of our coast, we will still be feeling those impacts here. If you saw the rain this morning, you noticed it. We already had some of those bands moving in. But today and tomorrow, both weather impact alert days here at First Coast News. And so the reasons for that we talked about already, we've gone through all of them individually, but just to wrap up again, the coastal gusts that could get a little stronger out there, occasionally some heavy rain, and where that heavy rain falls, if it falls on an area with already saturated ground, we could get a bit of localized flooding or some ponding on the roadways, and of course too the rip currents, the dangerous seas that are out there, wave heights, creeping up towards 10 feet tomorrow, but still some of those bigger waves out there, and the possibility of minor flooding at times of high tide. Right now, our high tide's happening like right about now. Tomorrow, closer to the 3 to 4 o'clock time frame. But again, our main point here is when these rain bands move on shore, we want you to be careful on the roads. We have all driven through them already today. Here, I can tell you from personal experience, because it was dangerous, it was hard to see. We were hydroplaning because it's tropical rain, so it's very heavy rain. It was wild because the sun is shining. It was a tiny downpour. You can see the sun, saw a beautiful rainbow, but such heavy rain that it makes it blinding and it makes it hard to drive on the road. So that is why we have the weather impact alert in effect today and tomorrow for the gusty conditions, the rougher, dangerous seas, and the heavy rainfall. That's not consistent, not all day, not everyone will see it, but occasional, that heavy rainfall.
Rainbow impact alert.
I love it. I would have taken a picture if I wasn't driving in dangerous conditions.
If you were driving in a pounding, blinding rain and there's that beautiful rainbow, that would be a bad way to have to call out sick to work.
Yeah, no,
I was trying to get a rainbow picture for the weather watchers. I've seen a couple just here in the last day or so myself, and I again driving, so I didn't get my picture. But I'm hoping maybe my weather watchers will. I love it when they submit their beautiful photos. But we're seeing great photos. That reminds me, if you're not on our First Coast News Weather Watchers Facebook page, log in. And if you're a photographer, or even if just an amateur, or just have a nice phone and you can share some pictures. We'd love to see your pictures around the community, because it helps us tell the weather story. And if nothing else, even if you don't like sharing your photos, you can see what the rest of the folks around the First Coast are sharing there. That's a pretty cool Facebook page, essentially run by you and run by the viewers that put in some great stuff every single day. We've seen some good cloud formations. We've seen some of those rain bands shared in our photos. So sign in and check that out as well. So in the meantime, Lee, why don't we show kind of that 7-day?
I actually just had it pulled up, and then
nice.
I changed my mind.
And you went to Imelda, the latest information, still moving north at 9. Still 60-mile-an-hour winds.
Yep. I'll show you that 7-day, and then we'll circle back to Imelda before we log out here at 2:29.
Yeah. So kind of what's next for the week? Because Monday, Tuesday, we know weather impact alert for potential tropical impacts. And these are more nuisance impacts.
Oh,
nothing
sorry.
devastating.
Sorry.
What happened?
I got excited and I clicked Imelda again.
No, that's fine.
Back to the 7-day. Sorry, everyone.
It is an impressive storm, not quite hurricane strength yet. But emphasizing, this is more, the inconvenient type of weather. It is not the devastating kind of weather. So this isn't us trying to drum up something that's not happening. Just want you aware that there could be some rain and during times of, your outdoor activities. So just, prepare by having a poncho or a rain jacket. I guess poncho is more for like sports events and stuff. You're probably gonna be more fashionable with your rain jacket or umbrella. By Wednesday,
sometimes a poncho kind of covers you more and keeps you drier.
That's true, but you become a walking greenhouse. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
you're just like humid on the inside.
Yep.
But you are dry. That's a good point. Better coverage.
Until you start sweating.
Then Wednesday a little better, right? I mean, at least as far as rain chances go, it's still going to be breezy at the beach. In fact, the rest of the week is going to be breezy. We're dealing with northeast winds again, and another week of that, it looks like, through the end of the week. So something we got to keep our eyes on, and that's not necessarily tropically related. It's that high pressure I mentioned, pressure gradient tightening. And by Friday, Saturday, with those northeast conditions, we may be seeing another round of coastal showers unrelated to Imelda or Humberto.
With that northeasterly wind, it kind of pushes that moisture back in, so we'll have the chance of rain higher at the beaches still through the rest of this time period. Well, as Imelda moves away from us, we're going to try to get some drier air in, so we can't completely rule out rain chances on Wednesday because of that northeast wind. However, for a lot of you, it will be feeling fresher. Look at that low Wednesday morning in the 60s. So should be pretty nice out there to start the day. I think Wednesday will be a nice day, well deserved after the dreary day today, and dreary for a good number of us again on Tuesday. Hopefully you'll enjoy Wednesday. But besides that, Lou, one more look at Imelda.
Let's do the
cone?
Let's do the cone.
Loading, so I hope you say the cone.
You read my mind. I think it's good to just kind of remind people, if you're just tuning in, you haven't seen the latest 2 o'clock numbers, still moving north, but by tonight, we're going to start to see a northeast movement, and confidence so high in that. Look how tight the forecast error is. That's the cone, right? So that's what the Hurricane Center, why they draw a cone. It's the potential with built-in error, because they know there is the potential for movement, but even a worst case, more northern western track stays about 300 miles from us, and that confidence is extraordinarily high, and it is going to turn to the east. I know a lot of people kind of